session. With Elisa Di Battista and Maria Teresa Barber.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to our Volume 2 session of Rocking Chair Sessions with our special guest, artist Jason Aponte.
Hello.
As you guys know, Rocking Chair Sessions is basically a series of live podcasts where we invite our creatives locally from Miami to talk about their life and their art. And it's kind of a hybrid between a psychotherapy session and an artist interview.
I plan to cry.
I hope you do.
Oh my God, we
Not
should
too
have brought the
much.
tissues out today. Oh man.
Jenna warned us.
Jenna warned us. Yeah, we are really excited that you're here with us today.
I'm excited
At
too.
the Bakehouse Art Complex, where we have a
Yes.
studio and we're previously working prior to coming to see us. So thank you for taking time out of your practice to stop and come talk to us for a little bit.
And thank you for having me.
And we have to explain a little bit. So we are recording the session in a studio in upstairs, Bakehouse Upstairs Studios. And the busy Bakehouse artists are still working, so all the noise in the background is actually artists working very
Live,
hard,
right
live.
now.
So this is very special. And we also have to say that Jason has been in a studio upstairs
Yep.
for how many years?
Ooh, I was upstairs for about 5 years.
For about 5
Yeah.
years.
Nice.
Before he moved downstairs,
Yes.
not so long
They,
ago.
they had to
right?
tear me away from upstairs. They
Yeah, we are a pretty
did
sad.
not want to leave.
tight groove up here.
I was
right?
nice and cozy
It
up
was
here.
nice and cozy up here. It still is. It still is. We miss you upstairs.
Don't rub it in,
We
please.
miss you upstairs.
The
Yeah.
studio's empty now, so you can always
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'd like to start off with, an icebreaker. Can you please tell us, Jason, where were you born?
Ooh, I was born right here. I was born in Homestead, Florida,
Okay.
on the Air Force Base. Father's military.
Oh, wow.
And so he was stationed here in 1976. That's the year I was born. And since then, just lived my life pretty much here, mostly. With a
I
little
did not.
excursion.
So where was your dad from?
My dad's from New York, from the Bronx.
From New York. And then you were born on the Air Force
On the Air Force Base here.
base here.
Yep.
That's pretty neat.
And then usually Air Force kids move around a lot, or is that?
Yeah, but he moved more than I did. Like in the sense that
Okay.
he was the one that was doing the traveling, and we stayed put.
You stayed put in,
Yeah,
in Homestead,
exactly.
and he was doing the.
And he
the
did
tour.
all the traveling,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So he would go like months at a time. Or whatever.
And then come back. So then what was your earliest childhood memory with that homestead and local Florida boy in mind?
Do you remember the Air Force?
Well, I
Station- like the
I definitely
base?
I remember the base for sure. I mean the base was around up until 1992 until Hurricane Andrew knocked it out, and I was involved with things that were on the base and around the base, and I used to go bowling on the base, go to the movie theater on the base. I used to ride my bike on the base, ride my bike along the airstrips where they definitely can't do that anymore.
Are you
And,
serious?
yeah,
Oh
I used to
my
go
God.
visit my dad in the shop and see all the F-16 engines and all of that.
It's
yeah,
so Top Gun.
Yeah, it's totally Top Gun.
Oh my God, I would have loved that. I was in love with Top Gun. Yeah, that's why I know the F-16, of course.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yep, for sure.
Well,
Amazing.
being how you remember the base, was that your earliest memory as a child? Like being on the base, or was it more like closer to home? Like you said, your dad would be gone for months at a time, so you'd be more at
Well,
the house.
my earliest memory that I have is, it's kind of random, but it's baby chickens.
Wow.
I remember baby chickens, and I don't know why. I mean, I now know why I remember baby chickens, because I asked my mom at one point, so why do I remember baby chickens? And she's like, how do you remember that? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, you were 2 years old, and used to have baby chickens. We used to have chickens in the back, like little foyer or whatever we had there, but and then we cooked them.
Your mom cooked the chickens.
Yeah, let me cook the
It's
chicken.
funny
Baby
that you
chickens.
say
Yeah.
that's your earliest memory, because my earliest memory is when I was 2 years old, and I don't know how your experience was. For me, it's kind of like, it was like very surreal, the memory of that I have from when I was 2 years old. Was your memory surrealist too? Like, were you living it? Were you not living it? Did it feel like it was a layered experience, or?
Kind of layered. I mean, it's not far from like my second memory in a sense, because my second memory was way more surreal. Because that memory, I remember coming home, or at least I was in the hallway of my house, and I remember knocking on the doors of like the bathroom, and no one was answering, right? And I remember trying to find my dad, trying to find my mom, and I go to the bedroom, and out comes this gorilla, and I remember freaking out and running, and knocking on the bathroom again, and thinking my dad turned into a dolphin. And now I find out later, of course, that my uncle for Halloween dressed up like a gorilla. So, you know, that scared me half to death, and it.
And you still remember
and
that?
I remember
because
that.
The fear was so.
Oh yeah, I remember. But like I said, my dad was a dolphin. You know, so that was surreal.
And he dressed up as a dolphin?
No. He just. I just thought he was a dolphin because he was in the bathroom. You know what I mean?
Like he was in the water and
Right.
had to sort of
He was in the water,
survive.
so therefore, if my uncle turned into the gorilla, then my dad must be a freaking dolphin.
Oh my god. Minds of children are so incredibly like
Well,
creative,
you
right?
create
It's
your own
like-
mythologies in order to like understand the
Yeah,
world
of course.
around
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So, being how at that moment, what was your earliest? I guess I said earliest already, but like the age when you knew you were an artist, was it young or was it as an older individual?
It was young. I remember we had moved from the base itself, and just outside the base, and there we had this dog, Blackie, and we had a dog house, and inside this dog house, I don't know, I was like 7 years old or something, and inside the dog house, I used to just hang out inside there. But I remember I had this great idea to like create this mural in the dog house, you know. So like I would sit there with all the paints, and and I did this huge like thing, and it was like volcanoes and rainbows and horses or something, you know. But I painted the interior of this dog house, and so that's my first like. You know,
Non-paid commission.
Yeah, non-paid commission. my Michelangelo Sistine Chapel.
And you start with a mural, you know, you don't start with a drawing, you start with a mural.
Yeah, it was a mural.
Go big or go home. And did Blackie accompany you while you were there?
Oh
Did
yeah,
you
of
ever
course.
feel him
Blackie would hang out
criticizing
with
you,
me.
He was okay with the
He was okay with
decoration?
it. Yeah,
or-
Do you have images of said mural, or is that long gone?
No, not too long ago. I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, and how old were you?
About 7.
About
Seven.
And okay, well, seeing how you jumped into painting and murals, what does this act of painting, since you did commence in such an early age, what does this painting or act of painting mean to you?
It didn't exactly mean anything other than that I just had this urge. It was an urge.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had that urge and that feeling inside me that said like I wanted to get these sort of images out of my head and onto a surface. And it was very basic, I guess. You know, it wasn't like I was even thinking that I was an artist. It was just a natural thing for me. And it continued. I mean, you'd ask your parents like, oh, you know, do you remember when your last paint, you know, that you started painting, and they, you know, every parent will say, oh yeah, you always painted, you always, but I have sketchbooks still, like filled from when I was a kid.
From early age on.
Early age and just drawings from that and so I've got my proof to myself, you know, that it was there very early on, and I played with everything: watercolors, tempera, pastels. Later on, actually started working with oils, maybe like 13 or something with oils.
Who supported you in your art making? Like, who bought you the materials, or who, told you like what else is out there?
Mostly my mom. She wanted to go to art school. I think she actually was going to art school for a little while, and then kind of dropped out or decided to do something else. And I have an uncle that the gorilla guy who he wanted to go to art school, and he got accepted to an art school in New York, free ride, but he decided to play basketball for Puerto Rico instead. And he would push a little bit, but mostly my mom. Yeah.
So it runs in the family. It's not like it's this random.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about a very small part of the family. The rest of the family is all military. Every single freaking person is military.
That's such a crazy combination, also.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
obtuse. Like it's
Yeah.
highly
Yeah.
Like the New York Bronx military guy.
Yeah.
And is your mom born in Puerto Rico?
She was born in the Bronx too.
She was born in the Bronx, but you have is her
My-
family from Puerto Rico? or-
Both sides of my family, on my mom and dad's side, are all from Puerto Rico.
Oh,
but-
both sides.
Yeah,
but they
the
met.
grandparents. All my grandparents are all from Puerto Rico. But on my dad's side, my grandparents, they moved to New York very early on when they were like 18 or something, maybe younger, maybe a little bit later. But even their parents had a house in upstate New York. You know, so it was a back and forth thing. It wasn't just like they were just in Puerto Rico. My mom's side, like, pretty much stayed in Puerto Rico up until like. Well, before she was born, so, and she had brothers that were older and that were born in New York as well. So still kind of early on.
You mentioned this journey you have, discovering like this urge that you had to like desire to paint, and then this discovery of materials, so to speak, where you experimented with like pastels, watercolor, what have you, and that you said you didn't really consider yourself to be an artist. You were just expressing yourself with your sketchbooks, through drawing, through observation. At what point did you feel, because I mean, we consider you an artist, at what point did you feel that,
We do.
I am an artist? Like, when did you realize or embrace it, or just completely take that on?
That's hard. I would say probably when someone paid me $5 to make a portrait was probably the first time I realized that maybe this was something else, you know.
Take your time.
Sorry, I
take your
lost
time.
my voice.
It's okay. We have water. We have water
That's
for
why I'm
our
drinking
guests.
water.
While you're drinking water, I think, was it, who else mentioned that it was the first time they sold something that they realized maybe there was something there as well? I can't remember. It was another conversation I was having, like that realization that maybe you could make a living off of it, or that it's a wanted commodity almost, because not everybody can draw or paint, that you realized there was something special, something different.
Yeah, it was, and I was in high school, like 9th, 10th grade.
Oh, that happened so
And
early?
that happened, yeah, when someone paid me to do a portrait,
Wow.
some pencil sketch. Well, it kind of came from another student actually. They wanted me to do.
So it was a commission?
It was a commission, yeah.
Your first official commission.
My first official commission, and it just came, I guess it kind of came from me. I used to just draw my teachers' faces like while sitting in class, so everybody would.
That's
You know, you were the doodler who was in class.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Did you ever get in trouble over that, or?
All the time. Yeah.
Because of the doodles?
doodling,
or just
yeah.
because we're not paying attention? Or
No, I was paying attention. It was just, you know.
Was it like satirical, or like was it offensive, or?
No. It was
No,
pretty
just
realistic,
because you
or
did
as
it?
realistic as I think it
Was it
was.
offensive because it was realistic, I wonder?
Probably, maybe.
Perhaps.
Especially because of the one teacher I used to like to draw. He had this huge mustache. It was massive. It was like a rat under his nose, you know.
Well, I like that you had. Well, I can't even imagine having a commission so early on. That's really incredible. So you kind of were like realized that you could make money out of what you love to do really early on.
Right, it was early on, but even then, after that, it was still hard to kind of fight the, you know, everybody the sort of voice that tells you, no, you can't do that because it's not realistic. It's not something you can really make money from. And, especially, I mean, like I said, my father was military. He was sometimes adamant about, like, you know, doing something else that was
More stable.
Yeah.
Like going to the military.
Or that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what were those triggers for you that you're like, no, this is the path for me? What were the triggers that set you on your way that you're like, you said the first one was a commission, but after that, what was it that you said, no, this is what I have to study, this is what
I
have to
couldn't stop
pursue?
doing it. It was constant. I was always reading books on it, trying different mediums, just playing with the stuff, just because I couldn't get enough of it, and I like the idea of exploring, what was in my head and putting it out there all the time, until now still. But film and comics was a big part of that too. I really, I would copy pages of comic books. I would try to get every book I could on like the concept art for films, and kind of look at that,
And that's still influencing your work to the day,
Yeah, oh,
right?
yeah.
Films
Yeah,
and
for
like
sure.
you put those in paintings in layers.
yeah,
Yeah.
using films to sort of create secondary images, like implanted imagery into realistic scenes and realistic reflections.
So kind of like the reality and virtuality are melting into each other in your paintings. That's
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah, exactly.
Did you go to, like, after high school, did you go to an art school, or what did you do?
I went to Miami-Dade Community College for a couple years to sort of figure things out. It was either that or I got accepted to University of Florida for zoology.
Really?
Yeah.
Those baby
The
chickens.
baby
The
chickens
baby chickens.
trying to get, and the
Baby
gorilla
chickens.
and dolphin. So there were a lot of animals.
knew it.
It's a lot of animals. And I kind of decided not to go that route. Because I kind of got pissed off that part of the acceptance was also because of my Spanish heritage, and that they needed
you
to
were a
fill their.
minority.
Yeah, I was a minority. They needed to fill their quota. But
You don't know that.
I don't really guess know that, but from a letter I got, it was kind of feeling like that was the case. Yeah. And so in any case, I went to Miami-Dade for a couple years and got my degree in art education, and then decided I put portfolios together, and I got went to like a portfolio day and got accepted to Pratt and Ringling, like right there at the portfolio day.
Amazing.
And
Wow.
and so I actually didn't apply anywhere else. I just said, well, I like the two schools. They're fantastic schools. And Pratt was, I have family in New York too, so that was like, oh, it'd be a great school to go to, but I'd be away from my immediate family, and so I decided to go to Ringling instead, and which I'm super happy about. They were amazing. It was actually for an illustration program, so Bachelors of Illustration, and with that I had learned as much as I could about just painting and drawing traditionally, and kind of decided after that not to go into illustration.
You had enough of that?
Well, it's not that I had enough of it. It was just I knew that going into illustration that I in the end would not really be creating work that was my ideas. Maybe somewhat, but in the end it's a lot more collaborative, and the commercial aspect of it wasn't so appealing to me, and I knew that I still had these ideas in my head that I just wanted to try.
You wanted to get out what is in
Yeah,
your
what's already
head
in my
and
head,
not
and
what
not
it's in
and not
someone
what
else's
someone else's head.
head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I love illustration. I love what people do with it, and I guess I'm particularly talking about certain types of illustrations. Magazine illustration, things
Like
like
still
that.
comic books or?
No, not necessarily comic books, but I'd still love graphic novels. Not every comic book, but
What's your favorite comic book?
my favorite comic book.
Is that a question
It's
I'm allowed
either-
to ask? I'm
Yes,
not
you're allowed
sure.
to ask that.
Let's see. Well, Watchmen This is one
Watchmen.
of them. Yeah, I felt the story in that is just incredible. And yeah, there's some really cheesy, tacky kind of things involved in that story, but other than that, it's pretty cool, pretty amazing. And
They haven't come out with a film yet over
they did.
with Watchmen?
Yeah, they did.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
I saw
Yeah.
the movie, and I feel like I don't know if you love more the comics versus the movie themselves, but like the movie, I mean, obviously characters that stand out, but also like the cinematic quality of the characters, I feel is something that speaks to like your love of not just the pure illustrative aspect of the original, obviously orchestration, which was comic book, but more of like the movement, which I feel like I see more now in your present work, like the living illustration.
Yeah, I in the end, I love the idea of having this two-dimensional surface, usually a square or rectangular shape, and having this idea that it can be infinite. So yeah, of course you can break off of it, you can completely do sculpture, you can do installation art, but having this 2D space and having this infinite world on this 2D space is really appealing to me. And so with the comics, it's locked into this format. It's a book format, and they try to show movement in this 2D static situation, and I think it's believable to a certain extent, and it's fun that way. And I do try to kind of pull that into my work, have this sort of sense of movement, even though there isn't any. Without drawing action lines.
Yeah, it's not as boxed in, literally boxed in like an actual comic book.
Well, especially I want to talk a little bit about your new series as well, where I saw the movement the most almost of the work that I've seen so far, where you are the subject matter is usually a woman that doesn't wear a lot of clothes usually, and then there are basically movements suggested in a way that there are different poses, almost like a stop motion picture, right? Where you have like different how would you say that, levels of the different points of the movement that you layer on top of each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if it would be a stop motion picture and it would play quickly and you would see the movement, but because it's a painting, you're making it up in your head.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like
trying to piece together those layers to I don't know, to make it feel more alive than this posed moment.
yeah, almost cinematic. It's almost cinematic.
And I think that's the driving force of a lot of my work is things play out like that in my head in a movie format.
That's so interesting, right?
Yeah. My question also is like, where did that bridge occur? Because obviously Ringling prepared you, I would say, formally with the instruction on knowing how to paint, knowing how to manipulate the material, how to master the techniques of illustration, and then you obviously had all these ideas in your head. When did the incorporation of your ideas make it onto the canvas to kind of sort of push through that multi-dimensional space that you create within the frame of your paintings? Like, when did that bridge finally connect for you and you went from being just illustrator to actually, executing your ideas that you had?
Well, illustration helped me with that because you have to tell a story, and I mean everybody's telling a story, I guess, in a certain way, but this was more direct storytelling, and you had a very short amount of space to tell this whole story, and I really loved that idea. I loved the old illustrators like N.C. Wyeth. They were filling in the gaps of like a book and showing certain scenes and telling a lot of information within that scene. I'm trying to stay away from looking like a movie poster, idea of things, but maybe a moment that tells a lot more about what's going on than having just like a collage of images. So it's to pinpoint in terms of when that actually happened. I think the biggest the earliest memory of that would be maybe I did this piece. It was actually using Norman Rockwell, and it was a Norman Rockwell about the little girl she was the first black American that was able to go
I
into
love that one. Beautiful.
and
with the soldiers.
with the soldiers, the U.S. Marshals escorting her into the school. And so that piece was extremely powerful on its own. And at the time that I was using this piece, it was right after 9/11, and we were a lot of us were really like anxious about it and trying to voice our opinions or stories or whatever about it. And so I created a sort of modern day version of it, because I heard the story of a Muslim school that was bombed, or at least bomb threats were being called in. And so I kind of made the little girl into she was wearing the dress, the headdress, and everything, and current U.S. Marshals, walking her along, but kept the word nigger in the background, and I called it America's New Nigger, and so it's kind of rough to do that, but it's one image that sort of tells this like massive story, that Norman Rockwell did as well, and then to reuse it, I think that was probably the first time that it really, I felt like the power of the image, and that cinematic idea of things, and telling that full story all in one image.
And also very political content at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
We're back from our break.
we're back from our break.
We've drunken lots of water, only, we swear, to refresh our palates. Jason Aponte is our second volume guest artist for tonight's session. And we were just going over the moment that more or less, one of the many moments that triggered his jump from becoming a previous illustrator to official painter / I would say bringing your own visions to fruition versus that of a potential customer or client. I guess we have a question more or less connecting like what you do as a day job and what you do as a painter. Do you feel there's a relation between your daily every day and then what you do professionally as an artist?
I do have a day job. I'm a ophthalmic technician, and everybody says, what?
I know what he is doing. He's working with an eye doctor.
I work with eye doctors right now. Particularly, I work with an optometrist, and that position, it's taking care of people's eyes and needs for their eyes, glasses, and such. But also do a lot of imaging regarding the eyes. Using different types of scans, maybe not so much anymore, but before it was doing measurements for like intraocular lenses, ultrasounds, fluorescein angiographies, things like that. But now dealing more with like contact lenses and making glasses, and still doing certain scans, but how does that relate to what I do as an artist right now? I'm trying not to force that. I've been an ophthalmic technician for a long time. Right out of school, I decided I needed to do something else because of the path I was choosing to take that wasn't so commercial, and decided that it maybe it'd be smarter to just sort of have something parallel to what I do as an artist, just so that maybe I don't become stagnant. Maybe I don't, become homeless.
Very important.
But I'm practical in that regard. I always feel like why suffer, as an artist when I don't necessarily rely on my art to succeed to continue doing it. I don't have to worry about that. I have a day job. So I try to keep my day job, the effects of my day job on my art minimal, meaning that I work, about 4.5 days a week. And the time that I spend at work, any breaks or moment that I get to actually work on my art, I will, even while I'm at work, But
Because you can use the computer also, right? Or is it more like a sketching?
Either sketching or sketching on a sketchbook or sketching on a phone or just writing ideas or just even thinking. Sometimes I have moments where I can just sit there and just think about certain things and I'm thinking about the images that I'm working on or piecing things together in my head. I have this weird ability to sort of like a photo memory, but photographic memory, not quite, but really just like hold on to an image in my head and take it apart, break it apart, put it back together again, change things around, and see where I'm going to go with that image. So I can do that while I'm working, and there are some days where you come really tired and it's hard to get into the studio and to work on your craft and your work, but I've learned a while back to just sort of not think while I'm actually like on the way to the studio, and then when I get to the studio, just give myself like half hour or something to just not do anything, and it helps, especially on the days that I do work and then go into the studio.
How do you divvy that up? How many like days can you spend in the studio, or how many nights? How do you do you balance that out?
Well, right now I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. And so I come into the studio Monday at night, Wednesday a full day, Friday at night, and sometimes Saturday, and sometimes a full day Sunday. It depends. So how many hours?
You work a lot at night.
Yeah,
I know
work,
that
definitely.
You work like long hours.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll pull an all-nighter and just like work straight into the next day.
Oh wow!
Just to make up whatever time I might have lost.
You mentioned the word, it struck me, stagnant. Like you thought that it would be a good idea to have a separate, I guess you could say, a place to go to, i.e. your job, so you wouldn't get like stuck or be stagnant. What do you do as an artist to recharge your batteries, to refresh, to get inspiration, new ideas, to not get stuck when you do go back to your practice?
It comes from a variety of different areas. Film, I love watching film, and obviously from what we've discussed before. So film recharges my battery. So sometimes I'll just go hit a movie, and that's enough for me to like get inspired again. Reading, sometimes I'll just reading certain things, or sometimes it's also sketching from life, painting from life, that recharges me a little bit. Because when you get into the studio, you're focused on the images that you've been planning for a long time, and unless you are specifically working from life for your final images, which I would love, but I don't either have that kind of money to hire people all the time, or people are severely impatient this day and age to sit down for even freaking 2 minutes. Even I believe it is the hardest thing. So but painting and drawing from life is one way to recharge myself, and you just see things that you don't see when it comes to using photo reference. Color and that movement again. Yeah. It comes down to the movement again too.
What inspired your new series? Like there was a shift. I don't know exactly when it happened. It happened in the last year somewhere. When you went from more like these everyday scenes in like cafes or like where to this new series with women, naked women or like barely dressed women, and more about the movement, right? It's more about the movement now.
Yeah, the shift happened more because, to get kind of personal, I felt that there was this thing that was happening to me that, women were, trying to not sound sexist, but it was something that they were a huge part of my life that I felt that was multiple things. They were a bit controlling, a bit, I felt taken advantage of because of my niceness, I guess. And that's one aspect. I mean, there's also the comforting and the wanting to be with a woman, or wanting to be with, my family. There's a lot of men. There's I had my mother and my sister, but I also had my cousins, and a lot of my friends are women because I don't exactly relate to men very well. I don't know where that comes from, but I don't like the way men tend to treat people in general. Not everybody, of course. I mean, to generalize like that is bad. It's horrible, but
certain men.
Certain men. It's I didn't relate to certain things. Sports. I love playing sports. I love sometimes watching sports, but I'm not gung ho about it. But at the same time, the women that I did get close to were very, it comes down to just like this sort of control, whether I would allow that control, or you can get into psychology and figure me using these images is sort of like
you were controlling.
I don't know about
no.
I don't know about if I was controlling, but
in the image, in the paintings.
Yeah, no, I know. But what I mean is that I don't know if that's why I was doing those paintings, but part of it was like allowing the fun to happen and allowing the the playfulness in some of the imagery, but also the sexuality and sensualness without. Because before I was using a lot of pornography as images, as a background image. As well, and that felt cold. It felt impersonal, and
that is true, because it was like pornography imagery was in the paintings before, but it was kind of harder to see.
It was harder to see, right?
So now you're really like they're less pornographic.
Yeah, they're not pornographic,
but they're right there. You don't have to decipher them.
And it's more sensual, maybe, versus that sort of overt. Just pornographic imagery. So, and then now a big female figure in my life, my mother, she passed away last year, and so it's sort of rethinking the images that I was doing when what you're talking about with the women pose naked and different types of positions, showing movement, sexual, sensual movement, that kind of thing. But now it's like, I may have figures within the image like that, but there's this other force that's there, and so I'm looking for these images of conflicting power, and I kind of wanted to start with my name, and that's so the images that we're talking about right now. I mean, I only have 2 going in the series, but there's a female figure and there's a bull, and I'm using the bull in both of the images. I've got a 3rd one planned, still using the bull, and I felt like that using my name which was derived from Jason and the Argonauts. My father named me after that story, and so I used that idea loosely initially to create these new images, and it was and it's hard for me to kind of talk about it yet because I still in a way am discovering the images as I'm painting them, but in the end I'm finding a lot of correlation between the actual mythologies and like Pasiphae. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I think
Pasiphae.
so. Pasiphae from Greece.
Pasiphae.
The queen. Yeah.
You know, where she was in love with the bull, had lust for the bull, and
Oh yeah, I saw that image that you're working on.
So
so mythology is like the Greek mythology.
Yeah, the Greek mythology is you know what I'm loosely basing these images from, but it's all coming from my name and where I come from in a way, and so. The family heritage obviously is Spanish, so there's that aspect. One of the images, there's men running with the bull, and a female figure kind of arching up, bucking the bull, like hitting the bull back. So I don't know. I'm trying not to overthink the images and really just put them out, but also to not really pull too far away from what I was doing before, using aspects of what I was doing before. Who knows where it's going to go? If I've become much more abstract in the way that I'm putting these images together. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's more like almost a dream-like imagery
Oh
now.
yeah, that's much more dreamlike.
Like the women before, it was like almost like I had the idea it's like a strip club, or it was like something real, you know.
Right,
it was like that's what I thought of. But the new series with the bull, it's almost like it could be a dream, you know, or like mythology, like somehow in a book, you know, like an illustration in a book, you know, where it's like you're kind of telling a story more again. You know? It's like,
yeah. So another image I'm working on is this sensualized or sexualized female figure as well, and it's just a bull's head, and it kind of looks like they're both in unison, or they're both on the same page, and it's seems maybe powerful. I believe very powerful. The next image that I plan on doing.
We are looking forward to seeing them really
soon. Which kind of is like, what are you most excited about was one of our questions. You're excited about this new series that you're exploring, because previous to this one, for our listeners, you're working now, like you're saying, you're going in this direction of like pursuing the discovery of your name, Greek mythology, and all that implies, versus before you were seeking more of the cinematic. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, like your previous work?
Yeah, I mean, my previous work was actually more along the lines of just the straight figure, working from life most of the time, drawing and painting, and just getting really good at doing that, and not really caring so much about what story I was telling, then moving into actually telling a story and actually having more intention in my image, and then starting to play with these sort of surrealistic images where I'm implanting these false reflections into actual window spaces, window scenes of restaurants or common day-to-day scenes. I like that idea of the juxtaposed images, just to sort of tell the story of the fantasy against the reality. And then moving into the more sexualized imagery, and with that maybe that was a little bit more visceral for me, and just sort of reacting and just using the female figure to be able to react with the paint. So I got a little bit chunkier with the paint, a little bit more expressive. Got
emotional,
more
also,
emotional,
right?
a lot more emotional. It's using watercolors sometimes, and then the oils, and working kind of large too. Actually, one of my largest pieces, the largest piece I've ever made was during that time.
Yeah.
With three figures, three female figures, and it was raw for me, like to do it that way, and to paint in that manner. And then now, you question your own mortality, of course, and you think about where you're going to go with your future work and the work that you've already done. What's the meaning behind that, and what's the meaning behind the new work you're going to do, and what's the point of it. And you can take that like in the sort of bad way. What's the point? Or you can say like, oh, really, what is the point?
Yeah,
Like,
I want to find it out.
Yeah, I want to find out what I'm doing. What is it that I'm trying to say? And I'm not sure I'm there yet. I'm exploring, and maybe that answer will never be figured out, but. At some point, maybe I'll get a little bit more comfortable in how I say things. So.
I want to make sure that Jason has also some time to talk about his current exhibition.
Yes, that's exactly the
and
next
then also
thing.
his future plans.
Yes.
So I wanted
Let's
to
get started with that. Yes.
Current exhibition is in Coconut Grove. It's at with Williams McCall Gallery, which they are partnered with Frameworks there. Frameworks has been there forever, but they turned it into more of an actual gallery space in Coconut Grove. Williams McCall Gallery has a gallery in Miami Beach as well. And there in Coconut Grove, I've got 5 pieces. They are the fantasy reflection pieces, and they're there till actually April 30th, so it's coming up where it's done. So run quick. You don't have much time to go see. Go and check it out now. It's on the corner of Grant and Commodore in Coconut Grove. Cool exhibit, and I got a chance to exhibit with a few other great artists, including Jackie Gopi. Jackie Gopi is also another bakehouse artist, and she's in the exhibit. And it's pretty cool. But future exhibits, don't know. I'd like to get into some more group shows. I want to stay away from doing any type of solo show, just to not have that pressure of creating this huge body of work when I'm right now in this like question state of my work. I also show periodically in Boston and New York, so maybe that'll happen again soon.
That's awesome.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe you do yourself a disservice in saying that you wouldn't want a solo show, because I do understand you're going in a new direction with this new body of work. But I feel that the pieces you made prior to that you're currently exhibiting with the Williams McCall Gallery it's so cohesive, even though they're all different, obviously, pieces. Yeah. That I could see you having a solo exhibit with all of those pieces that are classical.
I did have a solo exhibit with those pieces.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and.
So you want to wait until the new body of work
is
exactly.
Kind of ready? I'm ready for the next series to come naturally, though.
Yeah, not force it.
And not force it. So.
Oh my God, my favorite question.
Last question.
Okay. So you might know this already because
if you
Jenna might have told you this, or you've listened to, or I even told him, I think. You were sitting on a magical rocking chair.
Yeah.
It's not just any rocking chair.
Yeah.
And you have 3 wishes now. You can wish for anything. I mean, Jenna was pretty modest, right?
She was
with her massage and
super
cookies.
Low maintenance.
You can wish for anything, and we are not guaranteeing anything. But it is a magical chair, so go for it. Go for it. 3.
All right,
number 1.
That's an easy one for me.
Really?
At least number 1 is easy. I want my mom back. Not like zombie-fied mom back, but like
your mom.
The mom, yeah. Yeah, mom would be nice to have back.
Yeah.
Take her too soon. So that's number 1, easy peasy. Number 2, I want not world peace, but I want world happiness. That way, everybody can leave me the hell alone so I can do my shit because that means that everybody's happy with whatever they want and they have.
And then you can be
I can
happy.
be happy too. So I want world happiness. And number 3, I would say a bottle of Jameson right now would be amazing.
Bottle of Jameson.
Yay!
Okay, we'll make one of those happen.
Very, very great wishes. And we're at the end of our volume 2 of Rocking Chair Sessions.
Thank you very
I
much,
can't
Mr.
believe
Jason
this.
Aponte,
Yes.
for
Jason,
joining
thank you so
us.
much
Yeah,
for,
thank you.
for
Thank you for
letting
having
us
me.
in look into your soul a little
Ooh,
bit
yeah,
and
painful.
into. I hope it was not too painful.
No, I'm just joking.
Please inform us of your studio number here at the Big House Art Complex in case our listeners want to stop by.
I'm in
visit
studio
you.
number 38.
38.
And Wednesday is a really good day.
Wednesday's a really good day for me to
Yeah.
to show
stop
up during
by
the day
and
if you want.
check on
Otherwise,
your
at
work.
night you're gonna have to like sneak in or something.
Yeah.
But don't sneak in.
All
But
right.
maybe, but
So
don't.
thank you guys for listening again.
To our volume 2 session of Rocking Chair Sessions.
Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you, Maria. Very
It was
excited
wonderful.
to have you and being together.
And we're gonna be back next week
Yes,
with a new session.
and a different artist. And we will hopefully shortly be uploading this into our SoundCloud, and we will have information forthcoming about our next session. So that's pretty exciting.
Check Instagram, check Facebook, and check back in SoundCloud. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.